Oh, good morning, and thank you for joining us for today's edition of Sports Check with me, Richard Munga, where we get to talk about sporting matters as well as have a look at what happened over the weekend. Obviously, over the weekend, we had the Kenya Premier League. We also, the FKF Premier League, rather, forgive me. We had the CAF Champions League and the CAF Confederations Cup, as well as international, or rather, European leagues, specifically the EPL. We shall be having a look at that later on, but first, we're going to be having an interesting discussion. So, for those, it's actually something that we have covered before. I'm talking about none other than the Kenya International Sports Film Festival, launched in 2018. They will be holding their 4th edition this year, and that's starting this week, actually.
Yes.
That is on Thursday through to Sunday. And, well, it's bigger than, bigger than ever. 1,410 submissions, film submissions from 104 countries. We're going to be talking about that. And in studio, joining us for that conversation is Chris Kamau, not a so strange face really, on KBC. Thank you very much, Chris, for giving us the time right here on Sports Check on KBC.
Thank you for inviting me.
So something interesting happening this year, or rather started last year.
Yes.
The Kenya International Sports Film Festival, the 4th edition, of course, will be held virtually.
Yes.
So maybe, what's the reason behind that? I know we had COVID, but recently we've been having a few of the restrictions being lifted and whatnot.
Yes.
So maybe what informed that decision?
Well, actually, what happened is that COVID was sort of like a blessing in disguise, because we realized, of course, because of social distancing and crowds and that kind of thing, COVID protocols, that virtual was the way to go. And this is an interesting thing about going virtual. If you have your event in an auditorium that seats about maybe maximum 400 people a day, when you hold your event over like 4 days, there's no way that you'll reach 25,000 people. You see?
Yeah.
So if you do it on a virtual level, you have a global audience. They can join you from wherever they are, wherever in the world they may be. And then also you have wider access to people that you not get easy access to, because you're not flying them in, so you're not paying for air tickets, you're not paying for accommodation.
So it's cheaper.
Exactly. No, it's more economical.
It's more economical.
Cheap is a very dirty word. More economical.
Okay.
And convenient.
And convenient.
Yeah.
Okay. Now maybe for the viewers who are still new to the concept of the Kenya International Sports Film Festival, maybe you can just explain a bit what it involves really.
Okay, basically when you watch the Olympic Games, or you watch the Commonwealth Games, or you watch Safari Sevens, or any sport that you watch, like even when you watch Eliot Kipchoge doing his thing the other day, you've engaged in two things. You've engaged in sports and film. Now, a sports film festival brings together those two aspects of sports and film. If you've watched movies like Rocky, if you watch movies like Ali, those are sports films. Now, with sports films, this is an interesting thing, because basically, wherever we are in the world, sports unites us. But sports films, they inspire us.
They inspire us.
Exactly. Because when you watch a sports film, you see the dedication, the commitment, the endurance, the hardships, the obstacles that people go through to basically achieve their dream or their victory. It's very inspirational.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one of the people, of course, who have done that, everything that you've described, is none other than Eliot Kipchoge, who you did mention when you started.
Yes.
And right here from KBC and the sports desk, would love to congratulate Eliot Kipchoge. Of course, he was voted the best athlete of the Tokyo 2020 Olympics by ANOC, that is the Association of National Olympic Committees.
Yes.
There was an event in Greece last evening, so congratulations to Eliot Kipchoge. And of course, we hope that he does continue with the good work that he's doing. Recently opened, started his own sporting foundation, which is quite commendable, which we need to see more of that in Kenya, obviously. And so maybe borrowing from that, obviously, before we get into other matters, is it something that, you also be covering? Because not so many people in Kenya, sportsmen, we have a couple of them who have been trying to give back to the community since way back, like Tekla Lerupe, who is actually a brand ambassador for Kenya International. Exactly. So maybe is that one of the, one of your priorities, obviously, because you can talk about, archiving material from athletes, or they perform in international competitions, continental or even local. Actually, but then again, foundations, we have Victor Wanyama with one, Tekla. Yes. Is that something that you're looking into? Actually,
Kenya International Sports Film Festival is actually the work of a foundation. It's called Safinas Foundation, and it was started by the chairman of the Kenya International Sports Film Festival, himself an athlete of world renown. This is, of course, the chairman is Mr. Asif Karim.
The legend.
The legend
cricket,
himself, exactly.
legend.
Cricket and tennis.
And tennis.
Okay, basically.
Yeah.
And the genesis of Kenya International Sports Film Festival was in 2017. Mr. Karim, together with a filmmaker by the name of Amit Tyagi, they had a conversation, and they decided that there was a coffee table book that Mr. Karim had worked on called The Karim's Sporting Dynasty. That's three families. That's three generations of the Karim family. Two sports, tennis and cricket, and basically one family, the Karims themselves.
Yeah.
And now basically what happened is from the coffee table book, Mr. Tyagi said, you have enough information over here to do a documentary. So they said, okay, really? Yeah. So they did that. So they did a documentary on the Karims, Sporting Dynasty. It's available on YouTube, by the way. And then somebody came up with the idea of this documentary needs to be entered into film festivals. Really? Yes. So when they entered into film festivals, they discovered there was a niche for something called sports films. So Mr. Karim, being the sportsman that he is, he thought to himself, how come I come from a sporting nation, of a sporting heritage, sporting history, why don't we have a sports film festival in Kenya, or in Africa for that matter? Hence, he decided, you know what, I'm going to start my own sports film festival. And in 2018, the Kenya International Sports Film Festival was birthed.
Okay.
Yes.
So the Kenya International, Sports Film Festival, not only obviously it's not about just entries and film entries, sports film entries, and all that. They actually have these sessions where they discuss pertinent issues in sports at the moment. And among them for this year, for example, you have how esports is changing the next generation, generation story in Africa. You have bowling, talking about bowling, relatively new. It's not new, but it's not that popular really.
It's limited to a certain generation.
Exactly. You have a perspective on sports and related motivation. But today we're going to be getting a bit, deeper on three particular topics. Last year we were so keen to focus on sports governance in Kenya when Mr. Asif Karim was actually here in studio himself.
Yes.
But this year I wanted us to discuss three important issues, pertinent matters. First of all, we have the importance and growth of sports film festivals worldwide. We have doping in sports, the sad reality, present and future, which actually during the sports festival will be moderated by our very own Daniel Wahome. And finally, we'll be talking about mental health and its challenges in sport. Chris, if you allow me kindly, we can start with mental health and its challenges in sport, because it's I wouldn't want to say a relatively new theory, but it has been a trend recently. It has been so rampant, really. So many cases. You had Naomi Osaka withdrawing from a championship. You had Simone Biles, of course.
Gymnastics, of course.
Exactly. Kevin Love, basketball.
This
season, the NBA season that kicked off last week. We have Ben Simmons of the Philadelphia Sixers. Not playing for personal reasons, but he had, explained earlier on before the season that he was going through something. So that counts as mental, illness issue, or mental issues, really. I don't like, referring to it as mental illness, really. Mental health issues, really. So maybe what has informed your decision to include this in this year's festival? Because it has not been a point of discussion in Kenyan sports for quite a long time, really. Well,
what actually happened is we realized that with when the 2020 Olympics were cancelled and brought forward to 2021, but they're still called the 2020 Olympics, there were a lot of athletes who had been training. And in training, it's your mind, your body, your focus and everything. And so when COVID hit, basically what happened is it hit some people and it hit them hard. Because you're training for an event, you're putting all your energy, all your resources, all of yourself into it, and then you're told it's not going to happen. So automatically what that does to you is it puts you in a point of almost you go into a depression, because this is what athletes do. They make a living out of being athletes. They make a living from racing, they make a living from running, make a living from swimming, whatever activities that they do, it's what they do. So you have to realize that the mindset of an athlete is a very interesting thing, because the mindset of an athlete is it is set to win, to achieve victory. So if there's an obstacle that comes into that mindset, it takes them to some very, I would say, dark places. And then, like in a case like in terms of somebody like Naomi Osaka, that pressure, sometimes the pressure is just too much, because the pressure is coming from yourself, the pressure is coming from your family, pressure is coming from your friends, it's coming from corporates if you've got endorsement deals. So you cannot believe the amount of pressure that these people are under just to perform on a day-to-day basis. So now you can imagine if you had said that I'm a certain age. The 2020 Olympics is going to be the last thing I do, and then it's postponed to another year. So already you have to push yourself that extra year, and sometimes your body can't handle that. Really, you can't, because you really can't. And then you start getting, you start feeling that I'm not good enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not, that kind of thing. And depression is a very natural and a very human thing, you see? And when that happens, you begin to question yourself and question, what am I doing with my life? That kind of thing. You see, am I good enough? That kind of thing. So it takes you into that kind of space. So it's very, very important to realize that at the end of the day, athletes are human beings, and you must treat them as human beings, not just commodities. You see? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now, there is an athlete, a former athlete, really was a student athlete, but then again decided that he cannot pursue athletics because, he actually got into that place. He got depressed because all of the pressure when it comes to sports.
Yes.
And his name is Will Heininger. He runs the Eisenberg Family Depression Center, University of Michigan. And he says this, quote, and I quote, "The generational difference is one of the things that gives me the most hope about the future for society, not just athletes." In that statement, the way I understand it myself, I might be wrong. That's why you're here, maybe to clarify that. What I get is trying to say, and I want you to maybe explain how legit that quote is. When it comes to mental health, especially in sports, it wasn't, generally, not only in sports really, when it comes to mental health, it wasn't a norm to speak about this, back then. I feel it's not that long ago really. We're still going through the motions right now at the moment as we speak. But it's common mostly that, how true is it that the older generation, they don't find it, as a challenge really, when you're told to bug up your feelings, stifle your feelings, be a man, or
because that is the way that they were brought up. They were brought up to be men, okay, and they were brought up to never show emotion, never display your true inner feelings, always show your poker face. Just basically whatever is happening inside, let it happen inside, but never let it be shown to the world. And now we have a new generation. If people feel that they want to get emotional, they'll get emotional. If people feel that there's something happening in their life that's inhibiting them from being their very best, giving their best performance, they'll say, look, I can't take part in this particular event because of, ABCD, or even if I have like a knee injury or something. There are a lot of people like in the NBA who play with serious injuries, but they cannot say anything because the paycheck is just going to stop. Until now, you go for the regular checkup, whatever, and the doctor's like, hey, my friend, what are you playing with?
Exactly.
Kind of thing. So also we have to realize that now, because sports is a multi-billion-dollar industry, athletes are commodities.
Exactly.
At the end of the day. And if a commodity is damaged, unfortunately, goods once sold cannot be returned. But you can, cancel the contract or whatever it is, because if the person is not adhering to the terms of the contract, which is performing or playing for the team, then of what value are they? Exactly. So, and you have to realize that it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, so it's corporates that are behind it.
Okay.
And with corporates, kind, touchy-feely, it's what do you bring to the table at the end of the day? What's the ROI?
Okay, but then again, whose responsibility is it to prevent, or rather protect the athlete from corporate pressure, to say the least? Is it the federation? Is it the coaches? Is it the government?
No, the athlete has to have some kind of knowledge as to what they're capable of. And also, if you have a good coach and a good manager, they should be able to guide you in the direction that is right for you. That's why, like, I'm not going to belittle it, but there's the system of how they pick you for the NFL or the NBA, from college. You'll find some parents just say, okay, you're being offered $50 million. Really? No. Why? You have finished your studies.
During the draft.
Exactly. Yeah. But 50 million? No. You go in summer and you finish that. You know why? Because they know you can get injured. They know that very many things can happen to you. But with a good, firm, solid education, you have a future. That kind of thing. Okay. And you know, you find people like a good example is LeBron James. LeBron has been able to use his celebrity and you know, also use it in business as well. And I think he has a good team behind him. So did people like the late Kobe Bryant. So did people like Magic Johnson. One thing that people don't understand is how is it that like NFL athletes usually become, or ex-NBA athletes become very, very successful businessmen? It's because as a team, you have dedication, you have commitment, you have discipline, you have all these things ingrained in you. So they have this thing of, in the US they call them the jocks. No, they're not just jocks, they also have this as well. And that's why they parlay that into business very successfully. Yeah, because at the end of the day, an athlete is not just a machine or a commodity. There's a thinking, breathing human person behind that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Actually lost me for a moment when you said LeBron has a good team, and directly I went to this season the Lakers have been quite poor, but that's besides the point. Yeah. So okay, you talk about how athletes can be, you know, protected from the corporate pressure. Yes. But then again, don't you think it's an unpopular opinion? These are some of the views that were, you know, being exhibited on social media platforms, especially Twitter. When Osaka and you had Biles, of course, most people were afraid. They were expressing, I won't use the exact same word, some were not so kind, but most were expressing the fear that with so many athletes coming out, you know, talking about their mental health issues, how is that, you know, because people are afraid that it's going to bring down the level of competition. You know what competition was about. What do you say to that?
For every Naomi Osaka that is having issues that they're going through of a mental nature, there are 5 or 6 others who are out to compete. You see, we know Naomi because of publicity and because of what she's done. But there are other people who their mindset is they just want to win and win at all costs, and they have coaches that win and win at all costs, and they're not into the whole emotional thing, whatever it is. Naomi was able to do that because I think the society that she's in, you're able to display your emotion. And if you feel that you're not good enough, you can say, no, I don't feel good enough. Same thing with Simone Biles, you know. And they're a very forgiving society. But I don't think, and I'm not going to mention certain countries, but there are certain nations whereby if you come there saying, oh, you beat up my friend, this is not how these things happen. You go out there, you win, or you're cut off the team. Yeah. And they know themselves. Yeah. In fact, like one very interesting thing was during the Olympics was there was a certain nation that had actually been banned from the Olympics for quite a long time. But they came up under some amorphous something or other, and I can bet you that would never happen. It was an African nation.
Kamau is actually talking about Russia.
I didn't say anything.
Of course, Russian athletes were only allowed to compete, of course, under the
federation.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
The Olympic Committee, the Russian Olympic Committee. That's what he was so afraid of.
No, I didn't say anything. I just said nation. It's a certain nation.
But then again, because out of all the athletes that we've been talking about, what stands out for you? Because most people are saying, okay, all these people, you know, it's an agenda being pushed, because all these athletes, all these cases that we've seen, mostly 99.11%, really, they all emanate from the United States. So what's your take on that?
But what about the ones that come from Kenya? I mean, like every day, if you go on Langata Road, like between 4 in the morning or 5:30, you find one of our former brand ambassadors, Douglas Okiuri. He'll be there with his guys, you know, running. And I think for Douglas, it's like he's not had a good day if he's not done like 20 kilometers, you know. And the mindset of athletes is something that is like a mystery to me. Because you wake up every day having a certain goal, a certain objective, and if you don't achieve this objective, you don't achieve this goal, you've not had a good day. So I have a lot of respect for athletes. I have a lot of the really great athletes, by the way, are very humble people. They possess a lot of humility because they realize that their ability is not from them. It's a God-given, it's a divine talent. And they have this talent. Because people say, like, for instance, like Eliot Kipchoge, when you find, training at the camp in Iten, Eliot will do what everybody else does. He'll make his own bed, when it's his turn to do the dishes, he'll do the dishes. If it's turn to cut the grass, whatever it is. Because that part of being humble is part of what makes you a great person.
True.
Yeah.
Okay. Now maybe you have mentioned that, of course, about Douglas, and we have many athletes obviously in Kenya who are going through that, but it's not really out there. You know?
Congestina?
No, besides Congestina, because you have Congestina, you have a few young athletes that I can remember, you know, from the top of my head, who have come out to talk about that. But still, how do we, you know, how do we translate all that into actually providing platforms to discuss such issues?
We need the psychological community to be a bit more wary of the fact that athletes are actually people that need attention, that need understanding, care and concern, because of the fact that they don't just do it for themselves, they do it for their country, they do it for their families. You saw what happened the other day with the murder of Agnes Tirop. This is somebody who was living under very, very intense pressure. Very, very hidden. Very, very closed up about what was going on. Maybe if she had spoken to somebody, if she had said something, and they would have listened, what happened would not have happened, because she would have gone out of the situation early enough, you know? So we need people to understand that these people need an avenue to be able to express themselves, to be able to vent if need be. Because what is going to happen is like what happened in the boxing community with people like the late Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali took a beating all of his life. Later on in life, it came out in the form of Parkinson, because you can imagine all that being hit all that time. And a lot of boxers actually later on in life, they actually develop some kind of ailment of some kind, or a disease of some kind, because your body is your body. At the end of the day, it can only take so much. Exactly. The really good athletes know how to push themselves. Sometimes you might go to the gym and you might think that, oh, I'm doing 2 hours, I'm doing... No. Sometimes you can do what you can do in 2 hours, you can do in 35 minutes, and you have an even better workout than the person that's doing it for 2 hours. Okay. You have to know yourself. Yeah.
The most, the situation, or rather the one that stands out most, of course, here in Kenya, is the story of Congestina Acheng.
Yes.
Which brings me to this question, really, or rather, this point, which I want you to talk more about and give me your view on it. Because Congestina has been, in the limelight ever since she stopped, she actually retired.
Yes.
She has been dealing with a few challenges and whatnot. And not once, not twice, over the last, let's say, 8 years, it has been brought to the, to the attention of Kenyans, the government, the ministry, the sporting fraternity, that she has been dealing with a few things.
Morris Adumbe?
Exactly. But then again, what's the perception like? Because if really people were to turn their attention to such an important issue, we would have had already programs that are coming up.
Yes.
Not only from the government, not only from the ministry, from even corporates.
But you have, just the other day, Zitech University is investing in sports medicine and sports law.
Exactly.
Because they've realized that this is actually a sector or an industry that must be looked into. If the University of Nairobi did the same kind of thing, if KU did the same kind of thing, we're a sporting nation. Actually, to be on a very serious note, it is a disservice to have sportsmen and women who bring such great honor and dignity and glory to this country, put together the traditional dancers and the like. We should have our own standalone sports ministry. That's the only way that you can take sports seriously and to the next level. It should not be part of sports, arts, culture, no. It should be sports alone. And you can see countries that have a standalone sports ministry, like Rwanda, really coming up in sports. Uganda here has got some ridiculous sports regime that they're beginning to look into, and it's being fully supported by the government. And if we're not careful, in the next 4 or 5 years, if we don't have a standalone sports ministry, we'll be a has-been. Yeah.
Okay, in the words of so many people online, many Kenyan fans, a luncheon and traditional dancers is not enough appreciation for the athletes who always, risk their bodies, push themselves to the limit to represent Kenya out there.
Qatar and Bahrain will give them like $1 million shillings.
And you can't blame them, can you?
No, actually $1 million, not $1 million shillings. $1 million.
Just to go there.
No, when you win your race, when you come back, you have a special reception by the Emir, and he gives you $1 million. Thank you.
And that's how they tap into the African market.
Exactly.
That's why you have Ugandans, Kenyans, Ethiopians, Eritreans competing for most UAE nations.
Yes.
And it's actually a disservice, considering they're the ones who actually give Kenya the most competition in those. Exactly. Okay. So now moving forward, in this point in time, especially in sports, you have very the age. I mean, most young people are actually getting into sports.
Yes.
Most athletes, you can actually count the number of, let's say, marathoners that are actually currently active in Kenya, and the age limit, besides the likes of, Kipchoge, the others are, just starting out. In volleyball, you have young girls, young boys, of course, getting into the sport straight from high school, university, and they're actually, they're actually picked by local clubs for that.
Yes.
So do you think that we should have a system in, whereby when we are transitioning our young athletes into, professional sports, that maybe we should, even a system that includes even having, psychologists in these clubs?
Yes, definitely.
And how important is that for them especially?
It's very, very important, because like nations like China identify your sporting talent when you're very, very young. And then from there, they take you into the path that you should take as a sportsman or woman. Then also, we should not limit ourselves to what we think we can only do. Because the other day, you should have seen the look on Justin Gatlin's face when he was like, what? Omanyala did what he did. Like, Kenyan sprint how, when, where,
Second fastest man this year in the world.
Exactly, in the world. Fastest man in Africa, but second fastest man in the world. So this thing of, you saw even what Diego did with the javelin. You see, so why do we limit ourselves to, in fact, it is a historical fact that at some point in time, a Jamaican team entered a bobsleigh competition in the Winter Olympics. Have you watched Cool Runnings?
Not really.
It's based on a true story, by the way.
I saw it online.
And there's like 1 or 2 Kenyans that do skiing, whatever it is. Where there's sporting talent, we're a sporting nation, okay? We should not be afraid to invest in ourselves as a sporting nation. Because let me tell you, we can actually hit 2 pillars of the president's key agendas. That's industrialization and manufacturing, as well as, and that's industrialization and manufacturing is because a film is a result of a finished product after a lot of processes. So, and then it's broadcast as well. So that's a whole sector on its own, okay? So that's industrialization and manufacturing. Then with universal healthcare, if we're a healthy nation, do you know how much you can half that health cost, NHIF? You can take that money, you can put it into roads and other such things. You see, because we're a healthy nation. So we hit 2 pillars at the same time, And then at the end of the day, a healthy nation is a wealthy nation.
Exactly, and that's the only way we're going to be thriving.
Exactly.
But, of course, when we don't have such issues being addressed, mental health issues, especially amongst the young athletes who are the majority at this point in time, not only in Kenya, worldwide, when such issues are not addressed, they start to feel, what can I do more?
Yes.
That, more than, I'm capable of doing naturally, which actually, that's a segue. It was an attempt at a segue into doping, because doping also comes from such matters.
Yes.
You want to be picked for the national team, or maybe you've been struggling, you're lacking form recently, but people expect you to, just pick up yourself and don't talk too much out here. Just go compete and then come back, which, brings in the issue of doping, a huge issue really in Kenya. But of course we do commend the government and the respective federations for the steps they've been taking, especially since the year started, the anti-doping bill.
Yes.
It has become even criminal. There are some criminal, some offenses are quite criminal really. But then again, what's the point of criminalizing when we're yet to, start a rehabilitation process? What's your take on that?
Because it is criminal because you'll always have an upper hand on edge over your competition. If you do it intentionally, then definitely you're engaging in a criminal activity. If it's unintentionally because maybe you're relying on the advice of your coach, your medical doctor, whatever it is, and you really haven't the foggiest, and tells you that you take this because you look like whatever it is, that kind of thing, then that's a different kind of thing, because you can also plead because like sometimes some people, they've done like doping tests and you're taking Calpol or something and you find a certain element of, because sometimes some traces can remain and it looks like you've actually doped and you haven't doped, okay? But if you're actually doing it, like it was very big, especially in the 70s and the 80s, in the bodybuilding community. It was a very big thing until they realized that not only is it an unfair advantage, but it's also harming you as an individual. Yes. Now, when it's done, it is done with the express intention of cheating, for a better word. Okay, not even just giving you an edge over the competition. Actually, for you to have an unfair advantage over your competition, and it is very dangerous, also risky for the athlete themselves. And it's just something that, because in the spirit of the Olympics, the way the Olympics was done originally, you know, all those many years ago in ancient Athens, there was no doping. It was...
That we know of.
Well, that we know of, yeah, basically. Unless now you're taking some horse tranquilizer of some kind, which I highly doubt. But it was your worth, your measure as a sportsman or a sportswoman, okay? All these things, they're modern inventions. Basically, they should be done away with. We should go back to the spirit of, you know, because like, even leave doping alone. The fact that somebody trains on a natural level, in E10, whatever it is. And the fact somebody else is training with electrodes and you're running in water and all that kind of thing, of course that person has got a bigger, better advantage.
But is that doping? That is not doping.
It's not doping, but it's also not in the original spirit of what.
But it is what nowadays we're talking about sports science and the need for, you know, Kenya to, you know, get behind that, because you know, during the last few competitions, we've had a situation whereby, you know, some of the races, especially the 3,000 meter steeplechase, you know, and some of the races that we are actually encountering more competition, especially from European nations.
Yes.
Which I don't mean this in, you know, bad taste, but compared to Africa, obviously we have the best talent, especially in athletics. But we're in a situation whereby adoption of sports science is actually, you know, giving them the upper edge.
Because you have to invest in sports science, and you have to invest very heavily in sports science, and you have to train on a regular basis. It actually has to become your life, you see? And unless you have the backing of like a major corporate behind you, it's something that is not really a reality per se, because not every sportsman or woman, especially like on the African continent, has got that luxury of training 24/7, 365, you know? They just don't have that luxury, because for some people, in addition to their athletic ability, they're also doing farming, they're doing business, that kind of thing. And until you come to that point whereby you're comfortable enough in you as an athlete and your performance levels and what you can perform on a regular basis, and you've got the backing, you know, it's a pipe dream.
Okay.
It's a pipe dream. But if governments invest, that's why I'm telling you, we have a standalone sports ministry that is just concerned with sports and sports alone. These things can be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now back to doping for a bit. You've been in the industry, the entertainment, sports industry for a while now, really. What's the relation, according to you, between no, not an individual, obviously. I'm talking about sports matters, what we're discussing today. Between mental health issues and doping. What's according to you, what's the relation between the two?
I'm one of those people who can say that I'm high on life. Okay? I love life. I love living. There are people who, even in the entertainment industry, they cannot function without herbal inspiration. I don't know if it's the crowds, if it's a fear, whatever it is, you know, but they need that inspiration before they perform on stage and after they perform on stage. And it could be the same with some sports people. Because of the amount of intense pressure that is on them, they could seek inspiration before the race or whatever it is. So it is something that is, it cuts across the board. Some people will engage in what makes them feel comfortable, take them to another comfort level, and some people won't. It just depends on the character of the person that you are. Because if you feel that I need ABCD to perform, then unfortunately you will be in that bracket whereby if you don't have ABCD to perform, you won't be able to perform. You know?
That's addiction too.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah. Now moving forward, the issues that you're planning to address during this year's Sports Film Festival, which, forgive me for this, let me, before we get into that, how many editions so far? This is the 4th edition, meaning you've had 3 editions.
Yes.
And in all those 3 editions, you work with sports journalists all over the country, of course.
Yes.
You work with, members of different federations in the country.
Yes.
You work with, let's say, policy makers in the Kenyan sports industry. But then again, since you started the Sports Film Festival a few years back, what can you say has, can actually be, credited to the issues that you've been discussing? Because out of all these people you work with, these are the same people that, are involved with the daily, sporting issues in the country.
Yes.
But like last year we talked about sports governance. This year, still have the same issues. Doping is not a fast, still having the same issues. What's the extra mile we can go to ensure that we don't just have these sessions where we just talk,
This is the thing with the Kenya International Sports Film Festival. In fact, after we had the very first one in 2018, on the last day, when the chairman said that, Hugh, now that one is, we're done and dusted, and I told him, no, I told him the work is now beginning. Because all these conversations, all these panels, they have to come into some kind of reality. And like last year, we had a panel on WRC Safari Rally coming back. You saw the rally came back this year. We even had the likes of Phineas Kimathi on the panel last year.
Exactly.
And so it came back. We've also discussed issues to do with rugby. We also discussed issues to do with arbitration. And the reason why you have Omanyala running now is because there's some kind of form of arbitration that took place because, the backstory.
Yeah.
If there wasn't, he would not be who he is, you see. So these are things that are realities. They're translating into reality. Then also there's talk of, people wanting to do more sports films as a result of Kenya International Sports Film Festival because they're like, I never knew that I could do a movie on this or a documentary on this or that kind of thing. And in fact, like through the Kenya International Sports Film Festival, my own eyes have been opened because like there's a certain film. If I told you that there's a sport that actually happens, and as that sport is happening, it's supported by another sport, what would that mean to you?
Expound kindly.
Okay. When you're watching like a basketball match, right? What's happening on the sidelines? You have cheerleaders. Cheerleading is a sport.
Yeah.
So you get educated as well as informed and entertained. So there are very many things that arise out of the Kenya International Sports Film Festival. It's not just a sports film festival. It's an immersion into the world of sports and film over 4 days. But when you come out of those 4 days, you're like, wow.
The mind is open.
Exactly.
I remember I attended one last year.
Yes.
And it is actually true. And going by, once again, the partners that you have.
Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Last year, you also, were you in partnership with the Ministry of Information?
Yes. Still this year, same.
Still this year, the same thing. Congratulations to the Ministry for that.
Yes.
What are the initiatives you can say that have been, put in place or been developed to actually encourage young filmmakers at the moment to not only try, drama and comedies, the usual.
Well, it's not in my place to speak for certain government bodies, but there has been talk of wanting to invest more in sports films, and this is going to be a very huge driver for the greater creative economy, because it'll be work for the filmmakers themselves, work for actors, it'll be work for athletes themselves if it's documentaries, and it will actually raise the level of sports interests in this country and take it to a very to a greater level. And when you have the Ministry of ICT, fully backing you, you have Kenya Film Commission fully backing you, you have Department of Film Services, you have Kenya Film Classification Board, all on board. That means that you have the entire film sector of the Republic of Kenya backing the Kenya International Sports Film Festival, which is not only Kenya's premier sports film, it's Africa's premier sports film festival. And definitely, I would say that the future is so bright, you've got to wear shades.
Okay. So, Chris, what's the end game really when it comes to not only the film festival, but just, sports films? What's the end game?
The end game is to create awareness of sports films from around the world. Also to encourage a our own Kenyan filmmakers to look at what everybody seems to be calling low-hanging fruits in terms of sports films, and also to create a culture whereby we can document our own stories of our own sporting heroes. Because here's a very interesting thing that's going to happen. If you walk into a supermarket and you find a group of tourists comes in, and you find somebody shopping next to you, and you find tourists like, oh, that's so, you know, you're just like, ooh, you know, we don't even know our own heroes, unfortunately. So we need to be able to tell our own stories. We need to start telling our, you know, having our own documentaries, archiving them, because we don't need Nat Geo or Discovery coming in to do stories of our own people and they take them out. So our own athletes are better known outside by outside people than we know them ourselves. It's a sad thing, because like now, a certain generation here doesn't know who Kipchoge Keino is, or Naftali Temo, or Joka Denge. They have no idea who these people are, yet we know them. So we need to archive them. And maybe even at a point in time, as a nation, we should be so proud of our sporting history, we may even have an idea to have some kind of maybe like a sports museum.
Okay. Yeah. A sports museum, you say? Okay. And in the same spirit, of course, you talked about the low-hanging fruits when it comes to sports films. And this year you're also touching on a sport, I might be saying, you know, a low-hanging fruit, really, bowling in Kenya. And the premise is, what is the sport about?
This is very interesting, because the chairman of that particular bowling association is actually somebody who I knew to be a rugby player. So there must be something that drew that person to that particular sport, because it looks very nice and peaceful, you know, or lawn.
Yeah, just
bowling, you know, it's like people who play golf. They'll tell you that there's something about that sport that is not. A lot of people say, how is golf a sport? No.
It's an activity.
No, it's a sport. You tembea. You chase that ball. Okay, you focus. Anybody makes a sound, it's like, you know, almost like death, you know, kind of thing. So whatever it is that they have in that sport that gives them peace, calm, serenity, but still a sense of competition, we'll find out during that particular panel.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay, and okay, not to, you know, take from the, you know, expected panel, of course, later this week.
Yes.
But sports like bowling, you have, you know, sports in Kenya that, you know, they're really played by some people, but then again, they're not that popular. Not only because people don't want to know them, it's also because people can't access them.
This is a fallacy. This is a myth. One of the most famous polo players in the world was a gentleman from Kenya who used to play even at the Beverly Hills Polo Club. His name was Simon Kuseo. Okay, I don't know if you can remember him. Yeah. Polo is supposed to be the sport of kings, blah blah blah, whatever it is. Okay, Simon made it there somehow. Okay, strength, perseverance, talent. He made it there. Okay, golf is supposed to be perceived as a sport for the elite over here. Yet you can go and play golf at Jockey Club. There's a public golf course there. You can play golf over there. Okay, it's all these things of perception. If you apply yourself, if you believe in yourself, if you follow through in what you want to do, there is really nothing that is not possible in the world of sport here in Kenya.
Okay,
Yeah.
But Chris, get this. I understand what you're saying, but
I could give you another example.
Before you do that,
Okay.
I understand. I respect the optimism. I respect the optimism. But then again, let's just come just a bit down to reality. And where I asked about the access is, you see, for let's say a sport like football, what's the first memory you had of about football? What's the one thing that comes to mind when you think of football? Your earliest memory?
Watching football made in Germany.
Not only watching, even just football, knowing the sport itself.
Seeing the kids in the neighborhood who were older than me playing on the when we had the fields before they were all grabbed, you know? With the jola, the jola ball. That was basically it. Yeah, that's my first memory of football.
Okay.
Yes.
And that is indeed the case for, you know, most Kenyans, because you know football has been with us since, let's say, since you're a child. It's so easy to get into the sport. That's my point. you can just use papers to just, you know.
Yes.
We used to do that at a place called Argentos.
Yes.
I grew up in Eastland, so you see, it's all. You don't need to, I don't know, be a member of a certain club, which is associated with some sports. Let's say things like cricket, things like. I'm sure you get my drift. How can we make all these sports more accessible? Because even you're talking about bowling, and I get what you're talking about, like, you know, the example you've given about polo. But even bowling, most of these places, not everyone has access to them.
Or do they?
Or do they?
Because look, for example, like cricket, you'll find that the Tikolos and the Dumbes, they used to live like next to a cricket pitch.
Yeah, of course. No, cricket is more, you know, cricket over the years has become, you know, it has become more open. And of course, we had that conversation with Asif, and he talked a lot about it. But I'm talking about the new sports that we're trying to push, because, forgive me, there's another sport, I'm forgetting the name. It was sponsored by the Iranian embassy during last year's sports festival. Yes, exactly.
Zulkani,
But then again, what efforts are being made? Because you see, it's not only about, oh, you know, somewhere that they play this sport. It's about how you can actually change people's mindsets from not only football.
If you know the origin of Zulkani, there's nothing that's preventing you from going to the Iranian embassy, seeking an appointment with their cultural attaché, sitting down and finding out more about the sport and what you can do together. So, you know, Kenyans have got this thing of that, oh, it can't be done because no. Have you actually tried to get to a point where it can't be done?
I think talk to them, really, because I'm speaking like an ordinary Kenyan. And you just walk into the Iranian embassy.
No, you don't walk. You pick up what you call. You say, my name is so-and-so. I watched this thing on a panel on Zulkani, and it's like it seems similar to something called kabaddi. They'll say, no, it's different from that. Yeah, just, you know, come from a point of knowledge. You know, don't just expect things to happen. Yeah, I would like to find out more about it. You'll be surprised. They'll tell you, yes. Would you like to set an appointment with the cultural attaché, whatever it is? That's what their jobs are. They're here to represent their countries on a certain level, to do certain things. It's not difficult to arrange an appointment with, like, the French embassy cultural attaché, or the Iranian embassy cultural attaché, or the Japanese. That's what they're here for. Even the Americans, that's what the cultural attaché is there for. But Kenyans are like, oh, but you know, last week on a Friday morning, I was at a certain meeting somewhere. Even the CS himself was there for ICT. And he was asking us to ask him certain questions about the industry, ABC, this and the other. So a lot of people are like, oh, but you know, local content is not being bought. I told him, what are you saying? KBC, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation itself, I know for a fact, is buying local content.
That is true.
New local content. Because of the revamp and all that. I said, when was the last time you watched KBC? Oh, well, you know, no. Do you know what Musharraf said? He said, I have nothing more to add.
I support that, actually.
Yeah.
Because
simple as that. You're coming from a point of no knowledge. When was the last time you watched KBC Channel 1? Have you seen the rebranding? Have you seen the new programs? Don't just assume. Come from a point of knowledge. Always come from a point of knowledge. You'll be surprised.
Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, I guess what I was trying to pose to you is, we have all these different sports. New sports are always fun because not everyone can play football, rugby, volleyball. You know, not everyone can run.
Yeah.
Lord knows I can't. But the thing is this, we always have, and you said about these cultural attachés, of course, you know, they're there for that. But we've seen American football being introduced, being actually pushed by the embassy a few years back.
Yeah, even baseball.
Exactly. But I think what I was mostly asking about or focusing on is, at what point do we as Kenyans take it upon ourselves, you know, even the government, you know, support at least federations that come up and try to take that sport and, you know, push it forward to, you know, put it out there to Kenyans? Because the last time we actually had about, you know, American football being hosted was around UN, right here, just behind here. That was 3 years back. And it's something that had been campaigned for the longest time.
Why did they stop campaigning for it?
Because there's not what I can call, what I can consider, thank you, follow-up. And follow-up also includes people who have taken up, that initiative to actually, okay, you've introduced Ukani to us, now let's take it out to Kenyans. But then again, you can't do that alone, can you?
No, you can't.
Is it that we focus too much on the traditional sports that we're used to here in Kenya?
We focus on being Kenyans, whereby what's in it for me, unfortunately. Not what's in it for us. Because, like, for instance, if I was to tell you about a sport called lacrosse, if I was to tell you that Kenya was the first, I think, African nation to ever send a team to lacrosse for the championships, and that's been captured in a movie called Sleeping Warrior, what would you say?
I have watched it.
You watched it? You know the story?
Exactly.
What government support did they have? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. But then again, I do believe that these are the issues that, as Kenya International Sports Film Festival,
yes,
you hold this every year.
Yes.
So I mean, as a favor, on my behalf and Kenyans as well, maybe if you have these discussions, obviously with such partners who are in a position to shape public opinion, shape policy, it wouldn't be the worst idea to actually, grill them before the next edition. We can be doing not recon really. We can be taking into account what has happened.
Yes.
Since we last had.
Yes.
Actually,
going forward, it will not just be a yearly event. We intend to have like maybe 3-month sessions, that kind of thing, to follow up on where we are from the discussions and where we're headed. And also there's talk of going fully digital on a few other aspects here and there. And then if you look at how we started out in the beginning, if you look at the sponsors then, and now look at the sponsors now.
These are actually huge names.
It's growth, yes.
But Chris,
yes.
What is it that, most of this, they're not so obliged to actually... I'll always go back to sports sponsorship, I'm sorry. But what is it that they're not obliged to, let's say, get into a certain sport and actually, besides... I can see 2 or 3 without even mentioning names.
It's not that they're not obliged. Some of them have actually sponsored sports to a great extent. But at some point in time, the usual fiddling and faddling and corruption came into it, and they just pulled out.
The loopholes in sports governance.
Exactly. Just because they're like, listen, it's a slap in the face. Basically it's a slap in the face. Because if you really had a big corporate behind you, like Eliot Kipchoge, he's not had any issues with the corporates that are behind him. They're happy with what he's doing because he's delivering what he said he was going to deliver.
And is it easier for corporates to actually sponsor, individual sports rather than team sports? Because at least, with that, they know what they're getting. You've given a very good example. Kipchoge. You had Omanyala and a few others, individual, sportsmen. So is it that it's easy to sponsor them? Because at least at the end of the day, you know that they're responsible for their performance and not an entire team.
Well, it depends, because like with team sports, you can have... We have a very good rugby team. And they had a very good, huge sponsor. In fact, the dude was going to space the other day, once upon a time. You remember? I'm not going to mention who it is, but you know who it is.
Yeah.
But pulled out. Why? We don't know. We don't know. I mean, governments can do like what Rwanda has done with Arsenal. Every time they play, you see the visit Rwanda.
But then again, you see Kagame tweeting, criticizing Arsenal whenever they lose.
Well, okay, yes. But
I get it,
you see?
I get it,
and now, because of some strange coincidence or divine providence or whatever it is, because of having invested in now the other French team, now
PSG.
PSG, now whenever you know who plays, what do you see?
Visit Rwanda. I do actually get what you mean.
There you go.
I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Now, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We can have all these excuses, but when the rubber meets the road, it's up to us. If we have a standalone sports ministry, if we take sports seriously, and we don't put people who are not sports oriented in charge of sports. No offense to anyone, but I believe that the people who are in the sporting sector know the pain, the gain of being sportsmen and women, I think that's the way to go. Yeah.
You know, you just say no offense, but you say most people, even in the media industry, they have been not really afraid of criticizing those responsible for the, you know, deterioration of sports in the country. But, you know, whenever they're not held into account, we've been complaining about the same things. The governance, sports arbitration, doping. We've been.
But you saw the former CS himself the other day. He was.
Exactly.
There you go.
Yeah, but anyway, enough of that. Yeah. We had early on in the show, we congratulated Kipchoge for, you know, bagging the award for best athlete in the 2020 Tokyo Olympics held this year in, well, Tokyo, Japan. And let's talk about the Tokyo Olympics and obviously challenges and Kenya's, you know, performances. We had Kenya winning 10 medals, that is 4 gold, 4 silver and 4 bronze medals, meaning they finished first in Africa, but 19th in the world. Yes. So maybe by your account, we've not had a chance to sit down and discuss that, but maybe from your account, how can you gauge Kenya's performance? And of course, what do you always talk about? How we should diversify.
Okay, first
sports.
of all, let's call a spade a spade. COVID was a very big factor. And I think in some way it might have played on the psychology of the people who are training for the 2020 Olympics, as in the training for 2020 and not 2021, okay? So that was a bit of a curveball, as they say. And also, team selection is very, very important. I don't feel that we are honestly selecting the cream of the crop.
What do you mean by that? Because
we're not getting the best of the best.
The federations do hold trials, and it's whoever meets the time and the slots are located.
I don't think we're getting the best of the best at the end of the day.
Okay, expound, since you obviously disagree with that.
Yeah, because I feel that we need to go out to source real, raw talent that is out there, okay? In all sports, all right? Like I said, we cannot do not limit ourselves to certain sports. Don't do that. Go out there, find out who is good, who is actually the best at what they do. Get those people. Don't doctor the records. Don't get them based on favors of a certain nature, okay? That we're not going into. Get the right people for the right job, okay? And you'll see how we will grow in leaps and bounds as a sporting nation. We saw what happened the other day with the former CS and the former chief de mission. When you have people like that who are in charge of a national resource like sports, it's a very sad thing. It's a very dangerous thing. When you have the right people in charge of the national resource that is sports, people who are development oriented, people who are patriotic, people who want to do sports for sports' sake and take Kenya to the next level, you'll see how we'll grow as a sporting nation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that obviously we've had some, you know, relaxation of some of the, you know, measures put in place to curb the COVID-19 pandemic since last year, do you think maybe that, you know, moving forward, of course, a lot of championships are due next year, so maybe can you, you know, better our athletes, of course, to do better? Because I do understand what you said, because even for the Under-20 World Championship, the one that was held here in Nairobi, Kenya,
very nicely held, by the way,
recently, there was an issue because people were prepared, but then again, some could not meet the age threshold and whatnot because of the delay and whatnot. But what do you think we should expect from you know, athletes and sportsmen moving forward? And now, of course, we have actually good news. Stadiums.
Yes.
The ban on stadia has been lifted.
Yes.
Which is a good thing.
Exactly.
So maybe just your take on that, kindly.
Basically, start preparing now. Start preparing now. And we should be like, you know, the Scouts of a motto. They say, be prepared. Yeah. Don't just prepare for tournaments or for athletic meets. Prepare on a constant basis. Those nations that I shall not mention are always in a state of constant preparation. In all their various sports, by the way.
Yeah.
And if we're not careful, our neighbors next door, and I'm not just talking about Ethiopia now, talking about Ethiopia and Uganda, okay, who have got the same demographic athletic-wise, they'll overtake us.
That's actually true.
They'll overtake us. I mean, when you read or you hear stories like, unfortunately, that our national soccer team was comprised of people who had been selected from a certain sector. That's not the place where you go and do your trisex business. Yeah. No. That's the national team.
This is a World Cup qualifier,
exactly.
Especially, and we're out.
Yeah, so we need to be serious. Like I said, we need to take sports as a very serious contributor to the greater creative economy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and on that note, obviously, just a reminder, we have a big event coming up. That is the Safari Sevens.
Yes.
Let's come out and support rugby players and rugby as a sport in Kenya. So more details, of course, will be coming to you from the Kenya Rugby Union. A couple of teams have confirmed their participation. You have Spain, you have Germany, a lot really. And we are hoping that this will actually, set the precedent for the coming events that are being organized.
Yes.
But it's important to note for the viewers and for Kenyans, yes, the ban on stadia has been lifted, but I don't remember anywhere the president saying that COVID is over. So remember to keep your masks on. Social distance, the whole lot.
Sanitize.
Really, sanitize. So yeah, on the Sports Film Festival, just closing remarks as we end this first segment. Just closing remarks. Really.
Okay, we at Safina's Foundation, which is the parent of the Kenya International Sports Film Festival, believe that sports unifies us, but sports films inspire us as a society. So looking forward to you joining us from October 28th to 31st of October 2021 on the Kenya International Sports Film Festival, whether you're on Facebook, on YouTube. Looking forward to having you join us.
Thank you very much, Chris Kamau, of course, media liaison and also a moderator. We do hope that during the film festival starting on Thursday, he won't be afraid to mention names of countries like he was during this segment. And we do hope that on Monday next week, if all goes well, inshallah, we'll have the chairman, that is Asif Karim, as we take stock of the important bits and what was discussed during the film festival. Remember to join us after the break for a second segment. Thank you very much, Chris. And for the viewers, see you shortly.